This is an individual who boards planes to clean them after they've come from places where there is COVID, carrying passengers with COVID. Well, I can confirm that this was someone who was vaccinated and fully vaccinated quite early on in the campaign. In fact, we entirely expect that people who are vaccinated will still get COVID-19. It just means that they won't get sick and they won't die. You know, that's what the vaccine is for. So in this case, it is working as intended. This is not a worker who is very unwell and yet they have COVID. So it's doing its job. It doesn't mean people won't get it. They were actually vaccinated, from what I've seen, quite early on in our rollout. So from what I've been advised, essentially we would consider them fully vaccinated.
And so the lesson from New Zealand is that
even though we have vaccinated workers, we still are testing them. And we're still asking them to follow all of the usual protocols because it is still possible to get COVID-19.
Boom shakalaka, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters around the world. It is your boy Chris Shule, aka the Esoteric Noetic, aka the Chocolate Nubian Soul Brother. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, click on the bell, tell your friends, tell your mom, drop some comments, let us know what it is. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it from the New Zealand Prime Minister. If you have gotten boom shakalakid, you may still get SARS 2.0. It just so happens, though, that it won't be serious. You're not going to die from it. You will still need to be tested. You will still need to be masked. You will still need to have all these restrictions applied on you. That means comply with the lockdowns, socially distance, stay together by staying apart. One would ask, what is the point of getting the boom shakalaka? Oh, wait. It will reduce the severity, right? How do you argue with this kind of logic? Ladies and gentlemen, of course, this is YouTube, so I'm not going to go down any conspiracy theories. But I want to read you guys a message that I got from one of my closest friends just the other day. In regards to a friend, actually not a friend, this is his mother. This is his mother that had received the boom shakalaka. Hey brother, I'm gutted. My mom got the COVID boom shakalaka. She is 82 and said her arm is killing her, and she also now has flu-like symptoms and a chest infection. She says, wait for it, that she is glad that she had the boom shakalaka because she thinks it would be much worse if she had contracted SARS 2.0. How does one argue with that sort of logic? The people behind this are beyond evil. They rely on the trusting nature of the elder. Well, this is obviously conspiracy theory. I don't want to read this part. He's basically saying he doesn't trust the people that are behind this thing. But he does make a good point. How do you argue with this kind of logic? If people happen to get the boom shakalaka, and I'm not saying this happens, of course. This would never happen. But let's say they get sick. They get really sick, and they tell you that they would have gotten a lot sicker unless, of course, they got the boom shakalaka. How do you argue with that? How do you argue with when you start seeing people around the world having a whole bunch of severe reactions, and they tell you that if they hadn't gotten the boom shakalaka, it would be worse. They could have died. How do you argue with that kind of logic? How do you argue when people die? And then then the news tells you, oh, look, unless, of course, they had this thing, more people would have died. This is the insane kind of logic that we are dealing with, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, an 8-year-old could take this stuff apart. But, of course, it's all true. It is 100% true. And, of course, it is a good idea to get the boom shakalaka because it could have been worse. It could have been worse, ladies and gentlemen. It will be worse. And you know, the frustrating thing about this is, as I'm sure you were aware, we are seeing the implementation of essentially a Chinese-style social credit system. Now, I know you're thinking, oh, look, that's conspiracy theory, Chris Shule. Well, a year ago, if I told you that we would have seen boom shakalaka passports, I would have been called a conspiracy theorist. In fact, I was. I was called a conspiracy theorist when I would be chatting away with the jabronis on Tinder, telling them that, yeah, I think this thing is being used to bring about mandatory boom shakalakas, then call me crazy. And then what do we have? Of course, they were trying to implement mandatory boom shakalakas, but now they're just telling you it's voluntary because they realized that wasn't going to go down well. And by voluntary, they mean, oh, you won't be able to do anything. You won't be able to participate in society. The government is essentially coercing businesses in order to require entry into their establishments. In order to get entry, essentially, you need to get boom shakalakas and so forth. That is classic textbook coercion. That is mandatory. But the interesting thing is now the idea of thinking that there is a social credit system that's going to be implemented is now a conspiracy theory. Make no mistake about it, ladies and gentlemen. What we are seeing right now in terms of the passport that is being implemented by Medicare, that's the start of a social credit system. China style. I mean, what do you think is going to happen when... Obviously, at the moment, this isn't a case of what is going to happen. We have a situation where, unless, of course, you get boom shakalaka, you can't leave the country. Now, use your imagination here, and it's not imagination. This isn't a conspiracy theory. Obviously, this is going to expand. Now, at some point, it's going to be a case of, unless, of course, you can show the boom shakalaka, you will not be allowed access to pubs, public environments, public arenas, perhaps to catch an Uber. And the list goes on and on and on. Cinemas. In fact, there was talk about this. And now expand the rationale just a bit more. And now imagine what happens when the government decides to say, well, to make sure that you're not damaging the effectiveness of this rollout, we're going to make sure that you're being a good little citizen. If you've been dissenting, saying inappropriate things on social media, or you have been not complying, you haven't been tested, well, we're going to deny you access into these establishments. And you only have to use your imagination, ladies and gentlemen. Before you know it, you now have a system in place where people will be denied access to the most core elements of society, unless, of course, they behave, they do what they're told. And it's not just in regards to getting a boom shakalaka, it's in regards to getting tested, perhaps. It's in regards to breaking the law. And I'm not talking about the law as in the actual law, the natural law. I'm talking about the thought bubbles of leaders that have no understanding of human rights or even legalese. They just say whatever they want and then say it's the science. Say, oh, look, you're not allowed to protest now. I see here you went to this protest. And this is what's going to happen. In the same way that we check in all of these facilities, all of these establishments, they're going to use that against you, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, you've been into this area, and it was like an area that had a lot of cases of the SARS 2.0, and I can also see that you I mean, what happens when someone wants to use that, in addition to the fact that you haven't been behaving in accordance to the community standards of the state, and deny you entry not only into these private establishments or these public establishments, but to prevent you from leaving your home. I mean, you really don't have to think that far ahead to see how this stuff can be implemented. Anyway, I don't want to move too much into the realm of conspiracy theory. I want to talk about solutions, ladies and gentlemen. How do we prevent this stuff from becoming reality? Well, we have to learn to fall in love with the beautiful word no. Not just say it, but actually start living it. When it comes to disseminating information about yourself, your private information. You see, a lot of people have this idea that you have to be open and transparent about everything. Oh, I'm all about love. I'm spiritual, so I got to give my information to everyone, all the governments. I think secrecy is evil. Secrecy is repugnant to a free society, right? JFK once said that. I'm going to call bullshit on that. Absolutely, when it deals with governments that are essentially trying to pull the wool over your eyes in order to enslave you. But when it comes to yourself, you are sovereign. It's a self-defense principle. In the same way that you don't tell a thug your security code to get into your house, you don't share this kind of information with an organization that has a reputation for murdering millions of people. I'm talking about the government, by the way. Don't give this information. When it comes to checking into these facilities that require you to give your phone and let them scan this QR code, you know what I'm talking about. Don't scan. What do you think is happening? That information can be used against you. Personally, and this is just me personally. I mean, you don't have to do this. It's voluntary, right? It's just a case of, well, if you don't sign in, you won't be able to get access to this facility. If you don't get the boom shakalaka, you won't be able to fly. Don't fly. Don't give up your rights, ladies and gentlemen. Or don't acquiesce to this nonsense, because it will be used against you. At some point, you're going to find yourself in a situation where they will have all this information on you, and they will deny you access into these establishments and make it virtually impossible for you to function in society without having a headache. So simply do not comply to this kind of stuff, ladies and gentlemen. Unless, of course, you want to find yourself living in a Chinese social credit system where every single thing that you do, of course, has been monitored because you've freely given out this information. I mean, here's another thing to think about. When you actually get the boom shakalaka and you register on this Medicare app and you have to sign the agreement, have to essentially consent to what they're doing, how many people will take it upon themselves to read the consent requirements? Because the reality is there's going to be stuff there that is going to give them the ability to essentially do things to you, I would imagine, that you would not want done to you. And I think more often than not, people, in the same way that we comply with signing up to Facebook, comply with signing up to these websites, these organizations take advantage of the fact that people don't read the terms and conditions. Because, they tell you, look, please read the terms and conditions, but how many of us actually take the time to do this kind of stuff? Maybe 10%, 20%? That's being overly generous. I'd say it's more like 2-3%. But you'll find people will acquiesce to this stuff, will just comply to these terms and conditions. They give away their consent, and then later on find out that they've agreed to having some ridiculous Orwellian measure imposed upon them. And then what do you do then? Well, tough luck, bro. Now, granted, I believe that this stuff should be all about informed consent. People should know what they're agreeing to. But the reality of the situation is it falls on you to figure out what is going on, figure out what you're agreeing to, figure out whether or not you want to go in line with it. There is a spiritual, esoteric truth, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, being the esoteric noetic, I'm all about dropping the esoteric truth bombs. That nothing can happen to you if you do not allow it, if you do not give up your will, your consent. And you know what? It sounds kind of crazy. It's like, oh, you're crazy, Chris. These people are killing me. These people are obviously invading my homes. And look, it's true. I mean, people can obviously force you to do things, brutality. But fundamentally, this stuff comes down to us complying. Most of these tyrannies take place because we sit by and we let it happen. We give our consent. And it's important for us to be aware of that and to make the decision not to give our will, not to give up our consent, even if we think we don't have any choice. Because the reality is there's always a choice. There is always a choice, ladies and gentlemen. You don't have to comply with this stuff. You don't have to fly. If they tell me that I can't leave my home, I'm not leaving my home. Of course, it won't get to that because I will use whatever it is at my disposal in order to stand up for my freedom, stand up for my rights. But fundamentally, it comes down to simply saying no. Not giving out your information, not if you want to get the boom shakalaka, by all means. This is not a go at people that want to get the boom shakalaka. However, I would say the people that at this point choose to are probably ignorant in regards to what is going on in the larger context of reality, and understandably because they just don't have time for exposing themselves to the information, or they are, for lack of a better word, unwise and stupid. But that's just my opinion. By all means, of course, this is YouTube. I think everyone should get the boom shakalaka, but I'm just saying that, in my opinion, if you choose to do something like this, you probably have no idea what's going on in the world. objectively. Or you're the kind of person that has, in my opinion, no consideration for your own sovereignty, no respect for yourself, and are more concerned with, well, being able to fly and see your family. I understand. There's no judgment here. And I know this might sound harsh, but fundamentally, I think most people find themselves in the category of just being unaware in regards to what's going on. And I know it sounds harsh, it sounds perhaps arrogant, but the reality is most people don't. Most people work 9 to 5. Most people get home, don't want to do research, just rely on the mainstream news. They don't have time to look at contradictory sources. And as a result, they end up being subject to their own ignorance. But then there are those that are actually aware and still make this decision to comply because they have this faith, this blind faith in the establishment. And I say blind faith because, I saw a meme just the other day. I mean, when a priest tells you that you should just believe something because they have written these texts and that they have divinely gotten this knowledge and you should believe it, most skeptical people say, "Oh, you're crazy. I'm not going to believe that because you've just told me to. If I can't see with my own eyes, I'm not going to believe it." However, when a guy in the lab coat tells you that this thing is legitimate, that it is legitimate because they have written articles on the sides, and they tell you to believe it, bingo. Yes, yeah, man, I believe it because I believe in scientism. The religion of scientism. I can't see it myself, and I haven't done any research, but I'm just going to believe it because I believe it. Even though the people behind this have a reputation for a lot of fraud, have been sued many times, without mentioning any names. But ladies and gentlemen, this is provable. I can openly say this. AstraZeneca and Pfizer have been sued for gross negligence and a lot of other not so good things in the past dealing with boom shakalakis. And of course, a lot of you are choosing to put your trust in these organizations. Put your trust in these governments that also have a reputation for getting a lot of things right, like aspartame, like asbestos, like cigarettes, like a lot of other things. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let us know what you think. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, click on the bell, tell your friends, tell your mom. Check out my Telegram group, links are below. Check out the Hive blockchain. I'm posting on Peat, the link is below. It's a great social media platform if you want to stay in the know in regards to what's going on in the world and actually get paid for it. I would urge you guys to subscribe to that because it's all about being able to make a living outside of these legacy modes in this day and age. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself in a situation where you are subject to the system. Got to find other alternatives to make a living. Cryptocurrencies, perhaps. Social media platforms like Hive that pay you for your content. Plenty of other opportunities out there. But anyway, until next time, ladies and gentlemen, Surya Namaskara, Namaste. Peace be upon your buck cheeks. Peace in the Middle East. Ow!
What is liberty?
What the? Who says you can't build muscle on a vegan diet?
What's it like being a hottie in the vegan community?
There are no political solutions, only technological ones.
The economics of the system don't allow multiple competing systems to survive.
Engineering, technology, these arts of humanity, they are magic.